I want to show you how to create a print button using actions built into Acrobat. What this is, the form you're looking at, is the cake order form, and this was actually created on Form Central and copied down to my local system where I have it saved and I've opened it in Acrobat. What I want to do on this cake order form is take this form and allow the user to print it in case they're more comfortable with print. Now, I did modify this form just a little bit on Form Central. I removed the image from the original template. I also, down in this second page, made these cake fillings vertical instead of horizontal, and I added these pieces over here that don't really make sense. So I'm going to go into form editing mode by clicking the pencil icon up here, and notice because this came directly from Form Central, Form Central automatically enables it or extends features. So Save a Copy is available. Now I do have another version of this form that I can use, so I don't have to worry about that. And that is this one, version 3. So let's take a look at version 3. And if I click Form Editing, I can actually get into editing the form. Now you can see some of my form fields here have some interesting information in them. I'll open it up a little bit. So I would want to go through and reorganize this just a little bit. This is designed to work with the Form Central service, so there's a lot of extra information in here to assist that service. Out on Form Central, we need this information, but if I'm going to work with it in Acrobat, I don't. So just ignore all those numbers for right now. I'm not going to worry about that piece. What I do want to do is come down here and modify right here. So I want to fix or actually delete this area. And I'll go ahead and just draw a rectangle with this Select Object tool and hit the Delete key. Got rid of that information. Now notice I'm not really able to access this information over here. So that did turn out a bit odd, and this Select Object tool doesn't let me work with it. It's text on the page, it's not an object. So let me move out of form editing, and I'm going to go into the Edit Text tool instead, and I'll click on that. Now you can see I can access this. I'll draw a square around it as text and hit the Delete key. So I was fully able to edit that. I just needed to get into the right tool. This filled in Select an Object tool is looking for objects such as form fields, images, those types of things, buttons, flash files, movies, audio, all of those types of features. If it's just pure text, we just need to go back to the Edit Text and Images piece. So I was able to do that. Now what I want to do is create a button. And I don't need to move back into form editing because I have my handy button here in my Quick Tools area. So I'm going to click that button and move down here. Now I have a choice. I can put it in the middle, I can put it on the left, I can put it on the right. Whatever you think your users will be using or most likely to use, I'll go ahead and put mine down in this area. The idea is I want to allow them to print it out if they don't want to submit it online. So I'll name this Print as a name, and I'll click the properties. Now, as far as a tooltip is concerned, I will say click here to print the form. Now, I do find once in a while, if we're in an e-commerce or retail type situation like this, people do like to have a copy of the form that they submitted online. So just a side note on that one. I'm going to go over to Appearance, And I'm going to remove this fill color, and let me choose a slightly different color. This should actually probably be some type of brown, but there isn't really a good brown in here, and you can see how dark that turns it. So I'll just randomly pick a color. Let me pick this peach so you can see it. I'm going to add a border as well, and let me add a brown thin solid border. I'll click close, and if I move over to the hand, I can see what it looks like. Now I clearly have my form fields here and my button. The tooltip is showing, but there's no text. I need to select the object, or I could go back to the button tool, but that's going to think that I want to create a new button, not modify one that exists. So I'll double click the button. The piece you have to remember is in the options area, and that is right here. The label ends up being the text. So let me say print form. So that is going to become the text on the button. In the appearance area, this is what my text is going to use as its information. And since this one is more of a serif font, and Helvetica is sans serif, let me switch to a different one here. Let's see if I have Georgia. I do. And let me switch to Georgia Bold. That matches my form at least a little better with the font. So there is my print form button all set to go. But it's not going to do anything when I click it or when the user clicks it. So let's activate it as actually being able to trigger the print command on the system. So I'm going to double click that button once again, and I'm going to move into the button properties, specifically the actions that I want that button to do when the user does something. So I'm going to keep as my trigger of what the user does the mouse up event. Now there are a few in here, but I think for buttons you'll always find yourself using mouse up. It works the best with reactions to what the user is doing. Now what I want to do in the actual action is within this drop down, I want to print the form. Now notice I have submit, show and hide, reset. I have a few different pieces, but there is no print form listed within this area. So what I'm going to do is actually use the execute a menu item command instead. And I'll show you what that means. I'll click the add button. What that does is move it down as an actual action. And when I execute a menu item, what I need to do is say what menu item. And think of these menus as being the same ones as the words up across the top, File, Edit, View, Window, and Help. So you can see File, Edit, View, and you get the idea. So I'm going to choose File, Print. Click OK. It added it down here as when the user clicks the mouse, it's going to trigger something just as if the user chose File, Print in the menu. Let's close it and test it out. I'll move over to the hand. When I use this button, you can see it turns from a hand with very short fingers to a hand with a pointer finger and a thumb. That tells the user that they can click on that item. When I click, what it's going to do is the exact same thing for me as if I chose File, Print. So here are the print options for my system, and it also pops up a preview of that particular item. So there is the preview of my form as a printed document, and it's usually a good idea to look over how it's going to print. I'll go ahead and cancel out of that. But that is how you can create a print button. What you do is draw a button using the button tool, and then you have to remember to activate the button. And we do that by moving into the form properties And within those properties, there's an Actions tab. The action for a button is mouse up, and we're telling Acrobat when the user does that action, in other words, clicks their mouse down and then pops it up again to take their finger off the mouse, we're going to do something. And what we're going to do is trigger the file print command. So our form is all set. When the user clicks a button, the print command is triggered. So that is how you add a button to trigger the print command within an Acrobat form. You can see that's a fairly simple process. Every form field has that Actions button available, but buttons are usually done using the mouse up event as the trigger. So every button you create, if you want it to trigger something, you will set it up the same way using that mouse up event. But our print form button is all set to go for the user to trigger the file print command on their system.